I am going to get started. This meeting is being recorded, so I think that's okay, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, welcome, everybody. It is exactly 6 p.m. We're calling our meeting to order. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to join us. I'm sorry it's a remote meeting. I like to look at everybody eye to eye, but it is what it is. And Diane informed us that as of November 1st, the governor of the state of Massachusetts is withdrawing the mask mandate, which is very interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. We have left. I had circulated to everybody the minutes from the Babytown meeting, basically confirmation of everything we discussed at that meeting and also the town meeting. Are there any questions or comments relative to those minutes?
I'll move.
I forgot how long the meeting lasted.
Okay, so we have Neil moved to accept,
Yes, I will.
and Steve a second.
Yes.
Any discussion? There being none, I'll take a quick roll call vote. Myself, yes. Neil, yes.
Yes,
Pam,
Yes.
Steve, yes.
Yes.
Bill,
Yes,
Diane,
Yes.
and I don't think Jim has joined us yet. He has not joined us, so that would be 6-0. Okay. The next point on the agenda is the matter of reserve fund transfers. These reserve fund transfers relate to the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes.
And basically, this deals with the transition of accountants, Ray Ellsworth retiring, Cheryl Allen coming on board. And we have a few things that we need to address relative to these transfers. Michael, you want to go through it with us?
Yes, I'll screen share. Let's see.
Perfect.
All right. So these were the balances at the end of the fiscal year after closing out the budget. So, some of the small ones, the first four right on the list, undesignated town reports, snow and ice deficit, electricity and streetlights. Those are all just small overages that we ended up with at the end of the year that we would ask to have transferred in order to cover. We did see quite a few. The next three are all in relation to the compactor. And we did see some changes in the compactor operation over the last year, last fiscal year, including the position was made into a full-time position down there. And then the new hauling contract, which went into effect. So some of those weren't taken into consideration last year. And some of those adjustments we did make for this upcoming year. So these shouldn't be reoccurring. Insurance is the biggest one at 18,000. From fiscal year 20 to 21, there was no adjustment made in the insurance. It was 140 in each year budgeted, even though there were increases already slated for the 21 season. So we did make adjustments in the 22 budget to get caught up. We ended up raising it to 167,000 to include not only the deficit from the year before, but also the percentage increase we were expecting.
Michael, when you talk about insurance, we're talking about healthcare.
Non-healthcare.
Healthcare.
No, non-healthcare.
Non-healthcare.
Yep,
Okay.
this is general insurance. Injured on duty, general liability, building.
Workers' comp, GL,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
And because for whatever reason, it was left level funded from fiscal year 20 to 21, even though there were rate increases in there. So we may, like I said, we did make those adjustments for the upcoming year. And then the last one was computers. And, this one, between switching over our IT vendors, some investment in computers, we actually spent quite a bit more than that in computers. We upgraded all the town hall computers, but a lot of it we were able to cover under the CARES Act, the telecommunication portion of the CARES Act. But some of the leftover costs did cause computers to go over. Overall, the total that we're asking for is a transfer of $40,488.76 into those various accounts above. The reserve fund had at the end of the year $77,500, which still leaves a balance after all transfers of $37,011.24. So overall, it was a good year. Good, I think we closed out well. The biggest use of the reserves was prior to this was the actual repairs to the HVAC system that happened. And you guys did a reserve account transfer in the fall for that.
Are there any questions for Michael, please? Anybody?
Just a question for you, Jay. Do these need to be voted individually?
I would say yes, because
Yeah.
historically what we've done is we have signed separate requests for each of them. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
there being none, can I have a motion to approve, let me take them in order, the undesignated comp?
Jay,
Oh, I'll do it all and then I'll spell them out individually.
so are we going to vote on each one individually?
We can vote on, I'll list them all and then I'll list in the minutes that they are individually voted on. Because what I have to do is sign an individual reserve fund transfer for each one of these.
But that doesn't
Okay.
mean we have to vote on each one of them. They can be voted on collectively.
Fine, let's vote
I'm
on
just
them.
trying to streamline the process. It's going to take 10 minutes to do this if we do it
Yeah.
line item by line item.
I don't think so,
We
Bill.
can, Jay, we
Okay.
can vote. we can
I
vote
defer to the
list.
chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can vote the list.
Why don't we, I'm gonna list all of these so that they're perfectly clear. The first one is the undesignated comp, the report, transfer, the additional cost for snow and ice removal, electricity, compact operational changes, property and casualty insurance and computers. Can I have a motion to approve each of these?
So moved, all of them.
Who was that?
Me, Bill.
Okay, Bill, good. Second, please,
Second, that's Steve.
Steve. Any discussion? There being none, I would approve each of them. Neil,
I approve, yes,
okay, Pam,
all of them.
you approve them all, Pam?
Yes, I do.
Steve,
Yes, I do.
Bill, vote.
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Jim, have you joined us? Jim has not joined us.
Yes,
So,
he has.
Yeah, he's muted.
He's muted.
I'm sorry.
He's here. He's muted.
I'll
Oh.
abstain since I was late getting in
Oh.
the meeting. I did not hear the explanation as to what these cover, so I'll just abstain. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. We will move on from there. And Jim, I'm happy to subsequently discuss these with you if you so wish, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next item of business is an item that we have talked about briefly, bank accounts, okay? And
Jay?
I'm sorry?
Jay, it's Pam. And
Yes.
I will recuse myself from this.
I understand, okay? That being, Pam has an employment situation with one of the banks. I just made a note for myself. Moving on, there is Erica has nicely formulated a list of all of our banking relationships as of June 30, 2021, which has been circulated to each of you. There is a disparity in monies that go to each of the banks. For example, Adams Community has the largest amount. The next largest is Bank of New York Mellon, which deals with our OPEB funds. Bartholomew Investment Advisor has the next, Berkshire Bank, and then Unibank, and MMDT and Lee Bank. Now, also, you received a copy of a letter Depositors Interest Fund dealing with the FDIC, the DIF, and basically, this is a timely issue with respect to the retirement of Karen Williams, that this be taken a look at. And the thought that I had here is that this is a matter that, to the best of my knowledge, we have not brought before our auditors, and that we might want to bring this up to David Irwin and Adelson and Company, and get their opinion on the distribution here of monies, and then we can reconvene on the subject. Does anybody have any thoughts on this? Erica, any thoughts on this?
Well, the only
Jay,
thing
if
I'd like to know, Jay, is, and I don't know that it's appropriate for an auditor to make a determination as to whether or not there's some proper allocation. But I think what is important is to know whether or not we are getting the best banking services, and whether or not we are using RFPs to obtain those services. As I think I indicated to you, Jay, a few days ago, there was an advice from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts a number of years ago about using RFPs for the purpose of obtaining better bids, more complete bids on banking services. Now, the list of banks or financial institutions that we're using right now is diverse, in part because we have the Massachusetts, Deposit Trust, which is not in an FDIC or DIF insured account. And that also is true for OPEB. OPEB is under, separate management, if you will, in a trust fund.
And also
those two accounts can be excluded from this discussion entirely. I think that when you look at the Adams Bank deposit in particular, and you have over $4 million in a small bank, it raises questions in my mind as to whether or not we're getting, the best deposit services out of a bank that size. And I frankly would like to see the town, particularly since we have rather large, the $15 million balances, be looking at deposit services beyond the limits of Berkshire County for the purpose of finding, the best services. And it may be that Adams may have the best services. I'm not suggesting that they don't, but there ought to be some standard by which, or some protocol by which we seek these services.
Steve, if I might interject a point here. I personally would be interested in some type of a survey of the towns in Massachusetts as to what they do as background before we take any precipitous action. And I think the accounting firm could give us at least a survey of what their observations are. We're not asking for a recommendation. We would like to know what other organizations do, and then we can decide where we go from there.
Well, Jay,
Actually, I would
I
agree
think there's a better way of seeking that kind of information. We have the Division of Local Services of the Mass Department of Revenue, which can provide a great deal of guidance with respect to this, and also there's MMA, which is available to us, as well as to the Association of Finance Committees, which is now subsumed within MMA. And I think Mike is well familiar with all of this. It would be very interesting to know from the state and MMA what other cities and towns are doing in seeking banking services. We're going to get more information from those sources than we will from Allison and Company.
Michael, you want to comment on that?
Yes, so I do, and I agree completely with Steve. This is really not something for Adelson, but this is something that we can look at ourselves. So first of all, there are two issues. One is the procurement issue. So as Chief Procurement Officer, I'll go over the procurement of what we are talking about. So in regards to procurement for banking services, acquiring banking services is subject to the Uniform Procurement Law, Chapter 30B. When you obtain banking services through direct payment of fees or to obtain higher interest, municipality must use Chapter 30B procedures. There's some other information there that I took directly from the Treasurer's Handbook that you can find, and it's also on the procurement handbooks issued by the state. 30B establishes 3 sets of criteria for awarding supplies and services, and this is what gets into what Steve is referring to. The one that impacts us is for contracts for goods and services costing less than $10,000 in a year. We obtain those through the exercise of sound business practices. If it's over 10,000 to 50,000, you have to get 3 quotes from 3 different organizations. And if it's over 50,000 for the cost of goods and services, you have to put out an RFP. We are not required to put out an RFP. What we do is use sound business practices in order to determine which banks to go through. Now I'm going to turn it over to Erica, who's going to explain those sound business practices that we are using to determine which banks that we have the money in. So Erica.
Thank you. So most banks in Berkshire County and in Massachusetts use sound business practices. There's a couple, or most towns, I'm sorry, cities or towns. There's, I think, 5 large towns that do set out RFPs in order to get their banking services, but we are following what most cities and towns do for procedure. So what I do internally is I keep regular communication with the banks that we do business with, as well as all other banks out there, in order to keep our options open and to see what they have available for services as well as rates. Quarterly, I also review the VeriBank reports that are done by an independent company, which takes a look at the health of the bank and provides ratings based on their findings. We also look at the safety, yield, and convenience for how we choose banks. We do need some local banks that we can go to in person when we have cash deposits or need to do in-person transactions. A lot of the stuff we can do online, which is getting much more accessible, and the online platforms are getting much better and much more user-friendly. But we take all of that into consideration because we don't want to be hampered down by long processes and systems and platforms that aren't user-friendly. So we also look for banks that charge low fees or no fees at all, which does put us under that $5,000 that Mike was talking about, so that we don't have to go out to bid. We don't have to do that because we're not paying fees for a lot of the services that the banks provide for us. And we also look for banks that don't have minimum balance requirements, account maintenance fees, transfer fees, all of those, just so that it keeps the town's money in the town and not spent on all of these bank fees. And then one of the big things is looking at how the funds are insured, whether it's just FDIC, DIF. Some of the banks that we use collateralize the funds, and Bartholomew, MMDT, and the BNY Mellon all are low risk bank accounts. So that's the main things that we talk about, but definitely I think the most important is keeping in communication with all of the banks to know what's going on and to be able to see what's going on out there. So we do that all internally.
Is there some way, Erica, that we could bring this process forward in some type of an update for the committee?
I did an interest comparison with a lot of the banks at the summer treasurer collector school. I'd be happy to share that. Just keep in mind, it was one snapshot in time. So that was the interest and what the services they offered as of that day. I think some of the rates in the services have changed, but I'd be happy to share that.
Well, Jay, I'll just tell you that this is very helpful, and I appreciate the response from Mike and from Erica, and I'm satisfied that they are doing they're taking good care of our money.
I
Okay.
have a simple question, if I may.
Go ahead, Diane.
When the residents send in their checks for the real estate tax, that collection of checks, however they come mail or however it is they get to you, when you take that money, I assume you do your bookkeeping, but then the actual monies go into what bank? Is it all in one account and then gets distributed, or how does that work?
On the collection side, yes. So if you pay online, those go into a separate bank, but any physical checks and payments made in the office are all deposited into one bank account. And then any CPA funds are split and transferred out into the CPA account.
Okay. And those banks are local here?
So the local one that we put the collector deposits into is right at Berkshire Bank. And then the online payments are through Unibank. Unibank is second to none with their online payment system.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, where do we want to go with this, folks?
Jay, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Why do we need so many accounts? Why do we need so many banks?
Well, I think Erica can, as Jay pointed out, we have things from our general fund stabilization fund. Our OPEB is required to be in a separate trust.
Right.
We have a number of different accounts that were required. To me, that we actually have a small amount of accounts. So I don't think we have a large amount. I've seen many more as far as the city, but Erica, if you want to add more to that, or Cheryl.
Yes, so that was one of the reasons I was combining some of the general funds, especially just to see what we have, what the usual balance is going to be, to get an idea of how much cash is on hand during certain times of the year so that we can plan accordingly. Generally, cities and towns that are semi-annual do run into cash flow problems, but I have not seen that here, which has been a relief, but very surprising. So the general funds can be consolidated. Sometimes the advantage to keeping some of the money spread out is certain banks won't bid or basically bid on your loans or anything that you're putting out to bid if you don't have accounts with them. So that is one reason to split up the money and keep it with the accounts. That way, when we do go out to bid, we will get more bids in and hopefully they'll be much more competitive.
Or you mean for, what kind of loans are we talking about?
So like the loan that we just took out for the highway truck.
We'll be taking
For
one
how
out for the
much?
pump station.
Yeah.
So 145,000 for the trucks, 5-year notes that we're planning on taking out. Then we're to have the 650,000 borrowing for the chime tower. And then we have the $725,000 for the pump station. So those were all presented at last year's town meeting as borrowings. And those are ones that we go out and we bid those.
Wait, Michael, you mentioned that we have to have separate accounts in some cases. But separate accounts doesn't necessarily mean separate banks, does it?
Yeah, and those, some of the trusts do, right, Erica? The,
Yes.
yeah, the OPEB and
So there's no way to, I
Consolidate.
trust you that, Michael, that when you say this is actually a pretty small list, I still think it's too big.
Mhm.
And if we can shave it down, if we can shrink it, life has to be easier, it seems to me.
Well, I disagree. And I'll tell you why I disagree, Bill. I listened to the explanation when they're going to be bidding on different loan portfolios and so forth. But I also look at this list and I realize that there are certain banks that truly are local banks. And they're the ones who provide a pretty good amount of mortgages to Stockbridge residents. And I think there has to be some consideration with regard to that by our treasurer and finance or whoever else is responsible for this. So I don't think this is too large a list. And I certainly agree with the idea that it could be reviewed and that's where I stand.
like I said, I would point out that Erica is quarterly reviewing the Verifax as far as the different, how the banks are doing and the rest. So this is a constant monitoring of the banks, what accounts we have, and we are following all the procurement laws as far as requirements. So I would hope that this addresses this issue with this board. And then what we can do is have periodic updates to where our funds are and what banks that we are using.
I would add, Michael, if I could, I think it's kind of stunning that almost $4 million of our $15 million have NA after in terms of what the interest rate is. And that's the
Oh,
BNY.
That's the OPEB. So technically there is no interest rate with the OPEB. That can vary depending on what the market does. I can see what what they did earn in June and send that information out if you would like. So they do earn quite a bit of interest, but they also have the potential to lose interest. There's just not one fixed number that we can put in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I hear what Michael Canales has said, that basically Erica reviews these things on a quarterly basis. I suspect the last review was the end of June, and a quarter, the next one would be coming forth at some point. And I would suggest that we get that report and, we look at it and discuss it again if appropriate. What about that, everybody?
Sounds
I
good to me.
agree with that.
Is everybody
agree.
comfortable with that?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion to continue the quarterly review process and have the report come forth for subsequent discussion. Can I get a second?
Does that need a
Second.
motion? Does that need a motion or?
No, it doesn't. There's no reason for a vote.
Okay, fine. Then that would be the suggestion that would go in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay? Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Are there any other comments on this particular matter? Okay, is there any other business? Thank you very much, Erica, Michael, for your input. Is there any other business to come before this finance committee?
I just wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity from the finance committee to meet Cheryl Allen. our accountant. I'm not
Yes.
sure if everybody had an opportunity. So Cheryl, if you want to say hi to the
Hi,
finance committee.
everybody. I think I
Oh.
muted my microphone at the beginning and I was like, good evening, everybody. And I didn't hear anything. And I just realized that. So yeah, nice to meeting you, everyone. And yeah, I'm very liking this position and I'm with a very good team here. So yeah.
Cheryl, if I'm not
Welcome.
mistaken, you have background both in finance and law also.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
Yes, but my background in law is like the different system because my law degree was I got it in China. So
Right.
the law system is completely different, but I think it's also will be easier for me to read all those laws here and try to understand it. Yeah,
Welcome, Cheryl.
thank you.
What days do you work? What days does she work so we could drop in and meet her?
Cheryl's here Monday through Thursday. 9 to
Thursday, yeah.
4. And
Okay, thank you.
Thank
she's-
you.
I would like to say Cheryl's been a wonderful addition to the team. She's done an excellent job.
Thank you.
Erica has been a wonderful addition too. So, and I myself also, all three of us have been new to this. I do, one thing that we have done internally is we do meet once a month as a finance team. The three of us, including Christine and Michael Blay. So we meet internally as our own financial team. The last couple of weeks, we've been meeting once a week as we move towards setting our tax rate, but then we'll go back to our once a month. And then as any information comes out of there, if there's anything we feel like we need to share with the finance committee, I'll send it over to Jay in order to meet with you guys because we want to make sure that everybody's on top of what's happening. And if you have
Perfect.
any questions, please feel free to stop in or contact any one of us.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Michael. Anything else, anybody?
Mm-mm.
There being nothing, thank you very much for your participation. And we'll look forward to our next meeting. And I would call for adjournment at 6:33.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night now. Thanks.
Good night.